Hey guys, good evening. So it's a little bit early. I wanted to give myself a chance to, if there were any errors or any issues, kind of get those fixed before the stream started officially. Joseph had some dental work this morning. He's not feeling a 100%, so he's not with me in the room right now. But I think he is watching from the bedroom on his laptop just to let me know if there's any audio issues or anything like that. So hopefully you guys can hear me okay, and hopefully the music isn't too loud. It's been a really long time, so I kind of wanted to explain why it's been so long since I've been streaming, what's been going on. So when Joseph and I got married, my mother offered to paint the interior of our house for us as our wedding gift. And I had some misgivings about that. She's getting older. That is a very strenuous sort of thing, and it would take a really long time, even if she was coming and painting every day. But I got kind of talked into it. So something that should have probably taken a couple of months ended up taking like 8 months, because she and my aunt would come 5 days a week. Joseph or I would have to cook and clean up after them, and that would take up a significant portion of the evening, and they usually would only come after 6:30 and then leave before 9. So you guys can imagine something that should have taken a few months ended up taking a significant amount of time. And then there are various members of my family who have been having health and mental health issues, and it's just been a lot to deal with. But fortunately, we're done with the painting, so that frees up a tremendous amount of time and a tremendous amount of mental space for me. So I'm really excited to be back. I really missed the Friday night streams, the weekend streams. That was something that I really enjoyed, so I was kind of bummed out that, you know, that was something that kind of just wasn't feasible. So I am glad to be back. I hope you guys are glad to have me, and I guess we can go ahead and get started. So the first question we have is from Tally, and her question is, what techniques are best suited for working on Canson XL and Strathmore watercolor paper? So I'm gonna go ahead and start out with, I don't really like Strathmore's watercolor paper. It's kind of a finicky paper. It doesn't really accept watercolor in a way that I like. I like their mixed media paper, the 500 series cotton rag mixed media paper, a little bit better for watercolor techniques, but I don't care for their watercolor paper at all. I've tried using it over the years, and I don't like the texture. I don't like how the paints look on it. I don't like the tint of the paper, so it's not really for me. So for Canson XL, that is a paper I've used quite a bit, so that's good. In fact, all of the Paper Children tutorials that I've done here over the years have been done on Canson XL because it's more affordable. So with Canson XL, you can do layering and glazing techniques, but wet into wet and anything that really requires the paper to still be kind of wet is not... Oh, I am not streaming in live stream. You know, it's been a while since I opened up OBS, and I thought it looked kind of funny. The music is a tad too loud. Yeah, thank you. I do not know if I can change the screen ratio while the stream is going on. So just give me a minute, and I will see if I can fix that. Thank you for letting me know, by the way. So I think I found where to do it, and I can't do it while the stream is going on. So unfortunately for this stream, I think I'm just going to have to leave it as it is, which it's kind of a weird ratio. It's because I've been doing a lot of Zoom calls, and I think that's probably where the ratio for the screen is coming from. So thank you for letting me know, though. That's something I need to fix after the stream, so that next stream it's not a problem. So basically, any watercolor techniques, Tali asked about Canson XL watercolor. Any watercolor techniques that are, you know, pretty straightforward, not a lot of wet into wet, just one layer on top of another. So glazing is kind of iffy because you're applying a really loose desaturated glaze of color on top of a bunch of other layers of paint. And with a cellulose paper like Strathmore and like Excel and even like Montval, they can't really take glazes too well. So if you wanted to do an underpainting, like that grise technique where we do the gray underneath and then we put the colors on top of that, that might work a little bit better for establishing shadows. But I find with Canson XL, really doing the fewest number of layers I can get away with is usually a good idea. And all of my portfolios are far away. Otherwise, I would go grab one and kind of show you what I'm talking about. But that is a really good question. Handling your cellulose watercolor papers a little bit differently will allow you to kind of get the best results possible. So the cellulose paper that I prefer, the one that I do Qor pages on, is Canson's Montval paper. It's a little bit better than XL, but it's a lot, honestly, it's like really strangely hard to find. I have to order it online. I don't see it sold in person anymore. And for some reason, the way they like finish the paper just handles watercolor and watercolor layers a little bit better. So I try to keep it simple when I'm working with Canson XL, and then if I want to do wet into wet, I will usually either go to Montval or switch over to a cotton rag paper. So Jay asked, do I prefer digital art or actual paper? That's kind of a good question. It's kind of a loaded question. So even my traditional art there's a digital sketching stage usually, and I used to do all my sketching in traditional media, but I really like being able to work digitally and being able to resize things and crop things and cut things out and move them or resize them. So even pieces that look like they're traditional, with only a few exceptions, have like a digital component to them. So it's hard for me to answer that. I like the look of finished traditional art a little bit better than I like the look of finished digital art, but that's a personal taste thing. I don't actually think one is better than the other. It's just a preference. Cindy said, hey, long time no see. Nice to see you as well, Becca. Hey, Cindy, good to see you. Hello, saucy spam, M. Hi. Lots of goodies today. Yes, I'm glad you're looking forward to today's stream. So y'all can keep the questions coming at me. If I need to demo anything for you guys, please let me know. I'm more than happy to do that. So yeah, I have like a bunch of stuff that I've been like kind of holding on because I wanted to either do it during a stream or I didn't necessarily have the time or the mental space at the time to do it. So I've got a bunch of paints that I've been holding on to that I wanted to swatch. I've got some new watercolor brushes that I wanted to try out. I've got, I think Etchr sent me some of their cellulose watercolor paper, so I wanted to check that out with you guys. I have an interesting color to swatch for y'all that I purchased. I've also got the Supervision Color of the Year that I wanted to demonstrate. And then if there's still time, depending on how tonight goes, I have this watercolor painting kit from Michaels. I got it when it was on drastic sale, so it's spring themed and we're entering into fall, so you can tell how long I've been sitting on this. And what I think is neat about this is this kit comes with printed gray lines. So there you guys can see it. I know my studio is lit up like the actual sun. And it also comes with paints and a palette and a brush. And what I was thinking about with this is I was thinking about doing some paint along with me watercolor kits that I would sell in person at shows with like printed blue lines and like dabs of the paint they would need and instructions on how to do it. So I thought this could be a good way for me to kind of troubleshoot some of those problems without, you know, doing it and failing it and then learning from there. So if we still have time, we'll pick one of these watercolor illustrations that are all painted digitally on the packaging. They couldn't even watercolor them, and paint that together hopefully. So yeah, I'm looking forward to painting, but I'm going to start with unboxing some of these things that I've been kind of squirreling away. I know I had a box cutter over here and now I can't find it. I love how I had everything kind of like messily laid out around me and now I can't find any of it. All right, there we go. So I'll start with what I think is the cellulose paper from Etchr. And this was one of the rare occurrences that somebody contacted me and was like, hey, can we send you something to take a look at? So there's my disclosure. They contacted me and I was like, yeah, sure. And put that down. I don't want to give anybody bad handling inspiration. All right, Tally says, I'm not really doing a lot of glazing, do more of a single color and laying different media. In that instance, what exercise would you recommend for working with cellulose paper? Honestly, just go for it. Maybe not with the illustration or the drawings that you like consider like your good final drawings, but like just get in there and start painting on it. Hey Milani, how are you? Good evening. Oh, okay. All right, they sent some stickers and they sent some washi tape. Very cute. So basically just practice with it, doodle with it, experiment and use the kind of materials that you're thinking of using for the larger project with it, because the best way to learn how to do something is to just get in there and do it. I will say with watercolor and mixed media, order of operation can make a big difference. So if you are doing alcohol markers and watercolor, I would say do your markers first and then do the watercolor on top of that. If you're doing watercolor and color pencils, unless you want a wax resist technique, which is valid, I would say do the watercolor first and then do your color pencils on top of it. But playing around with it and seeing how you like it and how it works for you is a great way to get a feel for it. And the only way anybody can get better at anything is to just do the thing. Eating dinner. Yeah. So they sent me cellulose paper because they had contacted me about it. They have a new cellulose block out. So I'll probably swatch tonight's paints on their block and, sorry, it's hard to open, and on the good old Blick. They also sent some stickers, which are pretty cute, but they ended up getting kind of all, oh, they sent a lot of stickers. They sent me many stickers. I'll put those to the side. I don't really understand why they bubble wrapped it though, because it's paper. Shouldn't be going anywhere. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see it. I may adjust my exposure a little bit if it'll let me. I'd cranked up the brightness and then I realized that I don't want it that dark. That looks a little bit better. I'll leave the contrast as it is. Okay. All right, that should be a little bit better. All right, so we have an Etchr Lab watercolor pad, cold press. At least they're very honest on the front of it. It says 100% wood pulp paper. I appreciate that because one of my big complaints is that the only way you can tell with some companies that a paper is a cellulose paper is because they say acid free on it, and usually with cotton rag papers, like on here doesn't say acid free. It does say 100% cotton in big letters. Oh, it does say acid free. But it also, usually when papers are made of cotton rag, they brag about it. And they say that it's vegan friendly, which means it either doesn't use a sizing or the sizing that they're using isn't a gelatin sizing. And then they have their hashtag, tag us with Etchr paper on social media for a chance to win a monthly Etchr art voucher. And it is shrink wrapped. Decrease the exposure and increase the contrast. It looks better now though. So when I knocked it down to 7, it was very dark. Glazing is my supervillain origin story. I love that they're sending you stuff back. Thank you. This is the first thing they've ever sent me. They have contacted me a few times. Like, I remember when they came out with the satchels before I had a YouTube channel and I was just doing the blog. They were talking about sending me a satchel, and it never happened. So I was kind of surprised that it actually arrived. But yay, right? Saves me some money, and it means that I could spend Patreon money on other supplies to review. So that's a win-win in my opinion. And Tali says, thank you. I mostly have colored pencils and wax crayons from Crayola, so I would try. Unless you want a wax resist technique, which could be very cool, I encourage you to experiment and play around with it. I would do the color pencils and the crayons after I do the painting. And since you're working with color pencils and crayons, I would save a lot of the shading for the color pencils, if that makes sense. And Hope says hello. Hello, Hope. Okay, so here's our block of watercolor paper. All right, it's actually, if I didn't know, just looking at it, if I didn't know it was a cellulose paper, I would be tempted to think that it was a cotton rag, because it has like that nice irregular texture that I really like and feels pretty good. It is bound on, looks like all 4 sides. I'm looking for the opening. Aha, okay, the opening is over at the corner. So that's good. All right, so this is a block that should hold up pretty well. Give me a sec to get myself organized. So this is my cotton rag. This is my cellulose block. It means I can swatch on both kinds of paper. And I wanted to try out some different brushes because I've been using the silver black velvet for a while, and while I do really like them, I received a Paul Rubens quill as like a pack-in with an Amazon Paul Rubens order one time. It was like a deal, and I fell in love with this quill. I really like this quill. So I've been wanting to try more of the Paul Rubens brushes, and I've been wanting to kind of expand where I get my watercolor brushes from, since typically I either buy from brands that I'm really familiar with or I have to go in person and take a look at them. So the Paul Rubens comes in a nice gift box. That quill came in a similar box. Okay. I thought I ordered the set of 3. I'm gonna have to go back and look at my Amazon order. But this looks to be a different kind of quill in almost the same size. This is a 6. Come here, you. This is a 3. But look, okay, so the 6 is actually bigger and longer. It just didn't look like it for a moment. It comes in a carrying case. That's nice. Let's see if I can squeak it out. It's going to have sizing in it, so I'm going to have to remove the sizing. Okay, yeah, it does have sizing in it. It doesn't seem quite as shiny as the 3, I'll say that. But without handling it, I can't actually tell you if it says good. And this is an Esprit 1818 compared to the Esprit L 1616. I don't know what any of that is meant to imply. And then this is a different one. Oh, I cannot remember what brand name this was. I'm sorry. I do too. Quills are so Melani says, I love quills so much. I do too. They are so fun to paint with. All right. So this one is more like a traditional Chinese watercolor brush than maybe what we normally buy. But it's very plastic. So the body is plastic and then the ferrule is plastic. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's terrible. It just means it's plastic. So I'm going to need to wash the sizing out of these, but before I do that, I'll go ahead and open up some of the other stuff. So this is something that I purchased from St. Louis Art Supply. It's something I've been kind of hoping I could find it in person at David's Art Center, but they never got it in. And it is the Schmincke Random Gray color. alright quills. They're more affordable than a lot of the big, really nice quills that are like $600, and you're like, no. So inside I have a couple of folded up stickers. I'll put these to the side because those are vinyl stickers, and I'll put them on my sketchbook. I have my receipt that I'm going to, oh, somebody drew a cute, somebody drew a cat. That's the first time I've gotten a doodle. And it has my address, so I'm gonna fold it. So Holbein Watercolors, random gray, 2022, 15 milliliters. It doesn't have a price though. I don't like when receipts don't have prices, because usually I use the receipts from the package after I've gotten it to go ahead and record my purchase in Wave app. So it's a little bit frustrating when they don't. And then I do appreciate that we just have some craft paper rather than a bunch of plastic stuff. I have a pet rat, and I use this kind of stuff as like enrichment for him, and I can't do that with the bubble wrap, so that's for Basil. And then here is our random gray special edition, and I think they do this. So some of the companies will basically, when they clean out their milling machines, kind of collate that amalgamation of pigment and turn that into a paint. I know another company does that with their oils. I think that is what Schmincke is doing with this, and that's why it has a year date. Go buy the paint. St. Louis Art Supply is always acting like they are like 3 steps away from being sold out of something that you want, but then you wait on it and they sell out. So yeah, I've noticed I tend to get my St. Louis Art Supply stuff a little faster than Blick, but I feel like they're kind of expensive. So this is the random gray. Come on, you, focus. Is it gonna say pigment information? Store frost free. Oh, I don't think you have to worry about me. No pigment information, which kind of makes sense. They wouldn't necessarily even have that because it's something that might be made from cleaning out the machines. All right, so now I'm going to open the Supervision Very Peri Color of the Year. And this is a 3-tube set, all revolving around periwinkle. And this wasn't something I thought would make like its own video, if that makes sense. I mean, it's only 3 tubes. So I thought we could swatch this together here. Oh, I have to say, I know some other artists have some problems with Supervision, and I don't necessarily disagree with the problems that they have. But one thing I will say is that their packaging is always very nice gift packaging, although this one might be hard to open. Come on. Yeah. Ooh. Okay, so inside we have our 3 tubes of paint. They're all periwinkle themed. Let's see if it explains, because from what I saw on the listing, and I'll try to remember to grab the listing for you guys and put it in the description. There's like a day color, the normal color, and then the night color. And 2 of these are interference colors, which means they have some color shift to them. So we have Very Peri Day 502, so kind of similar to those shimmering layered watercolors. And then we have our regular Very Peri 501, and then we have our Very Peri Night 503. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm an art supply enabler. But it's also so easy to talk me into buying things that I don't feel that guilty. Okay, so it says popular color watercolor, which if it's the color of the year, sure, it is a popular color. I wonder if they're going to be doing a color of the year every year. Man, that would be such a way to get my money. This is Series D. The pigment CI name is PV23, PG7, and Mica. It's semi-transparent with 4 stars of light fastness, and this is Very Peri Day. Then we have just regular old very Peri. It is PV23 and PG7. It is actually I think that's more like, yeah, semi-transparent, light fastness of 4. And then finally, I always get kind of caught up with semi-transparent, which has like the cross through the square, and then one of them is dark and one of them is light. The light kind of implies the opacity. And then semi-opaque, which is the same square with just the line through it. That always kind of trips me up a little bit. So then we have Very Peri Night 503 with PV23, PG7, and mica. It is semi-transparent with 4 stars of light fastness. And then I have a bunch. I have buku watercolors that I've gotten from David's that I needed to swatch, and I figured I'd swatch with you guys. That I'm hoping it's like way too. It's like a hoard, like way too many. So I have a cup of water. I've got my paint. I've got my coffee because today has been a little bit of a long day. Not a bad day, just a long day. I had a work meeting, and it went well, but it also went for 2.5 hours, so I think all 3 of us are exhausted now, but we were talking about what Art Squad is going to be doing in the fall, so I'm looking forward to that. I am going to go wash the sizing out of these. I don't want to do it in my cup of water because I don't want to pollute that too much. And I think that's all that I really need, so I'll be right back. And I'm hoping to swatch both on the Etchr cellulose paper as well as the old standard Blick. And hopefully I can just like knock out a bunch of like preliminary, like, do I even like this thing sort of things that don't necessarily need their own review. So I also have a ceramic plate, good old Dollar Tree. Unfortunately, I had knocked out the Dollar Tree in Luling, and it hasn't reopened, and it's been about a year. And there's not really a good reason that I know of that they haven't reopened. If I can set it to auto duck, that would be ideal. I don't know if I can. That would be ideal. But I don't know if OBS is smart enough. Let's move those out of the way for now. So I can hopefully figure out a way to do this. And I'm wearing my light blocking glasses because I really am. Oh yeah, look, I gotta change that exposure rate. That is too high. It's always weird being gone for a while and then coming back because everything is just different and weird and strange. Let's try knocking the brightness down a lot. Let's see what 7 looks like. 7 looks like too dark. Ooh, and the focus is just not there. Just like me. Okay, let's see if that fixes it. Drop the exposure and increase the contrast. Okay. I will try that, especially because we're going to be looking at paper and I don't want to blind you guys. nor do I want to blind myself. Okay, 7, and then hopefully that's a little bit better. Thank you guys for your patience. And if I make way too many noises with that, I'm sorry. Okay, now you can see like a little A, a little B. So I'm going to start with the Schmincke Special Edition Random Gray. I really wanted David's to get this in because they've started carrying Schmincke and they never did. And they also never got haze colors in either, which is kind of like... So I think I'm going to start with the Paul Rubens, this one, the new quill, the larger quill. It already feels nice. It feels pretty good quality as compared to this. The handle of this thing feels very cheap, but the bristles feel fine. So that's probably going to be one of those things that I don't really know how it handles until it handles. When was the last time I streamed? Yeah, it has been ages. I was looking at it, and last time I streamed was in June for the watercolor snacks. And that was kind of like a special thing. So the cool thing about Random Gray is it's also supposed to have some interesting gray. This brush is already like, yes. Some interesting granulation to it. It's been too long, really. This is a good stream to like get back in the habit of streaming though. Set it to autofocus, then turn off autofocus. All right, give me a sec so I can do this while it's still wet. Because I want to encourage it to granulate. Okay, all right, so something I'm already noticing with the Etchr paper, and I will, after I fix this, I'll tell you what it is. I'm so glad Joseph is watching because I'm having all these like weird quality control issues. Okay, hopefully that helped. And he actually knows how, he's familiar with my setup and my software, so he actually knows how to help me. All right, so with the Etchr paper, it actually blended out a bit, but at first I had kind of a harsh line when I added the water. So one of the problems with cellulose papers, and it could be the nicest cellulose paper, it's not really like a brand specific problem, but some brands are worse than others, is that with cellulose paper, the paint and the water never soak into the fibers, whereas with cotton rag paper, they can. The fibers open up and it accepts that water and it stays wet a little longer, so you can do more wet into wet blending. Whereas with cellulose paper, you're basically working with the water that's still on the paper surface, and it can be really difficult for water control. So it takes I would say a good amount of practice to get used to it. I don't want to be like, oh, it's not possible, just don't do it, because I don't feel that way. But it does take more getting used to. And if you love like doing lots of layers and doing lots of wet into wet techniques, a cellulose paper is really not going to be the best choice for that. It's just not going to handle it as well. Now they're very affordable. That's one of the big selling points, but they just don't handle the water and the paints as well as a cotton rag paper. So I'm putting down a square of clean water. I'm just going to do the granulation test with this. I'm going to do it on both too. And that'll also allow us to kind of compare the different papers a little bit more. So something I'm liking about this brush is water control is fairly good. It's not very drippy. It's got lots of flex. It's very soft. We've got a lot of brush. So if you're into like loose watercolor florals, this could be a really good brush for that. I could also see this just being a good brush for covering a large area while still having the ability for some nuance, because it does come to a point. So this is going to be one of those that is going to go into a half pan, and it's going to go into my super granulation kit, because I think it will make for some really beautiful kind of like atmospheric dusk kind of colors. I'm such a sucker for for that. Like half my paint collection is like, this is for painting night scenes, because I paint a lot of them. Joseph said, I think you clicked auto brightness because the brightness looked like it dropped. I didn't. It does look, it did that actually earlier when I was setting up the camera. It did that too. The exposure dropped even though I hadn't done anything to drop it. It's just being weird. I should update the software. It asked if I wanted to, and I'll do that after I end the stream tonight, but I wasn't going to do it right before the stream, just in case it throws some problems. So next I'm going to swatch the Supervision Color of the Year, Very Peri. We're going to start with Very Peri Day. And oop, a little bit of that explosion, that AliExpress explosion of something that has traveled across the sea to be here with us today. And I'm going to use the smaller brush. And I'm using my palette just for some paint control. Just so I'm not like dipping straight. Ooh, that's a pretty color. It is, I don't know if you guys can see, it is kind of liquidy. Don't love that. I'm not super sure why it's kind of liquidy. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes they separate over travel. I've had it sitting around for about a month and a half. So not too bad, but also, you know, this isn't like the day I got it. So this is a color that unfortunately its best traits are just not going to be visible on camera, because it should have this really beautiful, oh man, that random gray color is so pretty as it granulates out. I'm seeing some of the blue and some of the orange in it. This brush is surprisingly okay so far. The bristles are a nice softer sort of fiber. Clean that out. It's a shorter brush, so probably holds a lot of water, holds a lot of paint, but you're not going to get like all that brush stroke finesse that you might get from a longer bristled brush. But it's okay. I gotta like look at how much I paid for these so that I can really determine whether or not this is something I can recommend or not. It does have some, especially on the cotton rag paper, Random Gray has some really pretty color separation going on, and I live for that color separation. Okay, so next we're just going to do some clean water. Keep in mind on the left is our cellulose, on the right is our cotton rag, in case that helps. I think it does. Okay, so you see how the water is just sitting on the paper surface on the cellulose paper, and I did that on purpose because I am dabbing in color and I want it to diffuse. It's already started to soak in on the cotton rag paper. So really the difference between cellulose and cotton rag, in my opinion, is really like how you're handling it and what you want from it. I find that cellulose papers do well with fewer layers and they tend to dry faster. So if you're a convention commission artist, right, and you're painting at the show, which sounds crazy, but I have done that myself, you're going to probably want to go with a cellulose paper, because it is going to dry faster. You can hand it off to the customer sooner. But a cotton rag paper is just going to be able to handle more layers, be able to handle more working. It's going to, a good one should kind of be able to take a lot of what you throw. Oh, okay, we had an all right, we had a Very Peri explosion. That does happen. I imagine these things encounter quite a bit of changes in pressure, and living below sea level, I'm sure, also affects the pressure. Okay, Tali said, even though the water sits on the surface, can that be a positive, or will it always be a problem? Also, besides doing paper children, what other 2 to 3D crafts have you done on cellulose? Well, all of 7-inch Qor was painted on a cellulose paper. It was painted on Canson Montval, which is a slightly more expensive cellulose paper. I really like it. It's just hard to find. So if I'm working on a chapter, I usually order a few pads of it before I start the chapter, so that I don't need so I'm not like waiting on Blick to send me my paper. This is gonna be fun to recap. I'm just gonna waste the paint, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna clean it off, and that way it's not sitting around being a painty hazard on my desk to get all over everything, because I am a Butterfingers, and if I don't get into it, my cat's gonna get into it. So for everyone's sake, I will clean it off and somehow make a bigger mess cleaning it off than... no, the water sitting on the paper surface is not always a bad thing. It's just something you want to be aware of and figure out how you can use it to your best advantage or work around it. So with the first color, making such a mess and it's getting on my hands. And I promise you guys, I'm not a fussy person, but I am that person who, like, just without thinking touches my face, without thinking touches my hair, without thinking goes to pet the cat. So I have to, hey Bidoof, I have to wash my hands a lot, because otherwise I would be like Typhoid Mary, except with paint. So I promise I'm not really like a big fuss bucket, but I have bad lived experience of getting paint everywhere and then regretting my choices. So no, what else? I use cellulose for a lot of like I said, the convention commissions. So it was like a very simplified chibi style with dots for eyes usually. Only 2 or 3 layers per area. So like the skin might only have like 3 layers to it. Just keeping it really simple, because I was painting on fluid easy block, which is a cellulose paper that's block bound. So kind of like this. So it worked pretty well as like a convention commission sort of thing, because the block holds it in place. Can you guys, am I on camera for this? There we go. Ooh, that's such a pretty color. Oh, it's so pretty. And that is just like the normal, very Peri. And it's this, I can't believe you get this beautiful color by mixing a PV23 with a PG7. Like, that's so pretty. And I'll blend it out just a little bit. I'm going to have to change the water soon because it is getting pretty polluted. And I don't want that to negatively impact how we're judging other colors. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before, where I take, also with cellulose papers, I would recommend you work with softer watercolor brushes. Those are more expensive, but they're less likely to just scrape the pigments off the paper. If you're using stiffer like synthetic brushes, I've found that they tend to just scrape the layers off the paper, but not everybody has that experience. I have friends who live in not as humid areas who've had better experiences with it. So it's, if you can play around with the materials, if you can take a class where the teacher brings a bunch of stuff for you to play around with, I highly recommend doing that, and then kind of going with what you like. That's such a pretty color. And what's weird in my opinion is that the day color, it does have like a subtle shimmer, so it's very pretty, but it doesn't have nearly as much of that periwinkle bleu as the just very Peri. Yeah, it has been a, oh, I have another explodey one. That's honestly, that's pretty common for stuff that you get from AliExpress. I don't have as, I think it's, oh wow, I look like I'm living on the surface of the sun. Sorry, I have a strong spotlight behind me to help eliminate shadows. Like okay, you see my hand? How there isn't like a harsh cast shadow. That's one of the reasons I light this place up like the sun. It's just really for like recording practicality. Okay, so with AliExpress watercolors, I noticed, oh, it's so pretty. Oh, sorry, it really is pretty. With AliExpress watercolors, I do notice that I tend to have more explodey ones than stuff from Amazon. It could just be how they were shipped. I don't know enough about how they fulfill their supply chain issues. Let's see. This one is probably very, yes, okay. Ooh, that is concerningly liquidy. Y'all remember, well, it was literally like earlier this week with the Five Below watercolors. Those tube watercolors were just like liquid. These are, okay, I would put money that there is dye in these their hill watercolor hills. Because, like, look, that's so runny. It's almost like I don't need to add water. I will say, so far, having only done one layer, the Etchr cellulose watercolor paper it's okay. I'm going to have to, this merits, like, playing around with it more because it hasn't just, like, totally died, totally. Trying to think of a non-curse word way to say it. There's a phrase that I'm sure Joseph probably knows what I'm thinking of. But just, it hasn't totally just wrecked itself. Pooed the bed. Hasn't totally pooed the bed. Oh. Very Peri. I kind of wish they had just released Very Peri and hadn't done the two duochrome colors, because the two duochrome colors just don't have a lot of impact to them. And Very Peri is, that's this color right here, is just such a pretty color by itself that I don't really feel like I'm missing anything. Now the problem with that is you only get one color of the year, and it's easier to sell a set than it is sometimes to sell singles, if that makes sense. Easier to build up hype and stuff. So liquidy. But the night color and the day color, I'm going to try drying these in half pans, and I'll see how I like them, because maybe it doesn't, there's no impact. But maybe drying them a little bit will help. But they are incredibly liquidy and just don't have a whole lot of color payoff. However, Very Peri, the main color that you'd think they would just be adding mica to it to make it into the night color and the day color, is a very pretty color, and I like the color. So it's not a total loss. It's just like two of the colors in the set are like, and one of the colors is like, yeah, I like that. So I'm going to have to switch my water out. Would whoa, sumi brushes be good for cellulose? Yeah, actually, yes. Sorry, brain went into shutdown mode for some dumb reason. It crashed, it blue screened. So I often recommend sumi brushes for people who want to paint with natural hair brushes and are on a budget. Those can be a great way to affordably get some larger, soft watercolor brushes. So yes, excellent thinking there. Yeah, most watercolor from tubes don't drip. Is it metallic? Kinda. So this beautiful color we get here looks like kind of like a blue metallic with the periwinkle. It doesn't look anything like that. I'm gonna dry them in tubes though, and hopefully that helps. But that we're not sticking around all week on a live stream to watch paint literally dry in a tube. So I am gonna go switch my water out, and then we can start swatching the semi-random hoard. The commonality in all these watercolors, for the most part, is that I bought them to go in to like fill holes in my watercolor collection. So, oh yeah, I have a Schmincke graphite tube as well. So I'm the common factor here. And I mean, it's like a bunch of different brands. Daniel Smith, more Daniel Smith, PWC, Winsor and Newton. No, alizarin crimson. I need to put that in my regular, since that's me refilling something. HWC, which is Holbein. It's a lot of PWC watercolors, because David's down here has a really good price on them, and they're good watercolors. So I'm always like, mine. All right, I will be right back. Second from the bottom left. This one is similar to the blue screen of death. That's what my brain does, unfortunately, too often. The very Peri looks like this Holbein watercolor I have and love. It's super thick. It looks more like gouache. I think it's the lavender or something. I don't remember. It's a really pretty paint though. I think I know the color you're talking about. And it's also kind of similar to their Vertiver blue, which is also gorgeous. Convenience colors you didn't, that makes the theme convenience colors you didn't know you need. Probably. Or Becca is lazy and likes convenience colors. So I've got my clean water. So far the two new brushes are pretty good. I think I like the Paul Rubens quill a little bit better than whatever this is. I would buy both again though. And I know Paul Rubens also makes some like smaller round brushes, so I'll probably be trying those as well, because while I love silver black velvet, they can be kind of expensive. And it's just not, I mean, I've fallen in love with quills too. They cover so much area on the paper, and they're just kind of a joy to paint with once you get used to them. So I'm kind of hooked. Cindy said, lavender is actually a really good color for sky paintings. Yeah. Surprisingly too, cerulean blue can sometimes be a really good one. Okay, so next is Horadam Acryl Graphite Gray. And this is one of those where I kind of always hope I'll be able to erase it with an eraser. Like, how cool would that be? But I personally haven't yet encountered a graphite watercolor that I can erase. So. Ew, that's kind of pretty. So it's like a nice, kind of dark gray. I'm not necessarily seeing any graphite speckles in it, but just because I'm not seeing them doesn't mean they're not there. Actually, it even gets kind of dark. That's really pretty. I don't know if I want graphite speckles in it or not though, because if it doesn't have graphite speckles, then I can actually use it on Qor pages. But if it has graphite speckles, then I don't know. Oh, Light Wish! Thank you! It was more expensive? Really? Really? Huh? That's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to believe. I thought the Paul Rubens one was the more expensive one. And the thing about quills like this size is they tend to be prohibitively expensive. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to, because I really liked the one they sent me as a pack-in, and I was willing to roll the dice and try again, and I have to say I like the other one too. So I also picked up some of the Schmincke. These are like their neon colors basically. So we have Brilliant Blue Violet, Brilliant Red Violet, Brilliant Opera Rose, and Brilliant Purple. And look how cute your little tubes are. They're so cute. Look at this ridiculousness. Look, ooh. Don't ever talk to me and my son again. I do think, and I hope I'm not disappointing anyone too terribly, I do think, considering my brain is trying to quit on me, that after I finish swatching these with you guys, I'm going to probably call it a night because I still have a page to pencil for Kara, and I'll save the watercolor kit for like next week, if that's cool with y'all. And we'll just like go in rolling with that. So this is a brilliant purple. Ooh, yeah, that's such a pretty color. I really love the granulation on the graphite gray. That's really pretty. I'm such a sucker for granulation. I've been reviewing, they have not been released yet, but I've been reviewing more student grade watercolors. I'm kind of like nearing the end of it. So it's like a lot of the sets that either require like multiple days to review them. Like I want to compare Cotman watercolors against Phoenix watercolors, so that's going to take a few days, or like all the Hemi watercolors. I'm going to do that as like, I will probably do that as a big showdown. But otherwise it's like all the stuff that I wasn't really that excited about, or like I kind of put off. So it's like a bunch of really cheap dye-based watercolors that are terrible. So seeing granulation again is like, ah. Joseph said, I didn't check the sizes. It's possible it defaulted to a smaller size. Let me look at what you paid. And Tali said, thanks, Becca. I figured Sumi brushes would be soft enough. Another question related to Sumi brushes. Does it matter which brand I get? That's kind of a yes-no question. If you're buying in person, and I don't know why I did it like this. If you're buying in person and you can feel the bristles and you can make sure it doesn't just shed bristles left, right, and center, it doesn't really matter so much because you can kind of quality control. But if you are buying online, I would say sticking to like Yasutomo makes decent Sumi brushes. And I'm saying what we can get in the U.S. If you were in China or if you were in Japan, you would have access to way better than what we're able to get. But for us U.S. shoppers, Princeton also makes some pretty good Sumi brushes, or I have a feeling they're white labeling them, but they tend to be okay quality. Basically the white haired ones are goat, and I think the darker colored ones are supposed to be weasel, and I think weasel is supposed to be the softer one. And then there's also like pony and something else in there too, but we don't get those over here too often. But basically, if you can go and feel the bristles yourself and you're satisfied with the quality, I don't necessarily think it matters, because you're the artist, and it's how you feel about it and how you feel it will work is really what matters at the end of the day. Like, for example, I like the silver black velvet brushes a lot. This isn't like me endorsing it. This is just a story. I really like these. I use these all the time. They're some of my favorite watercolor brushes. A friend of mine who is also a really good watercolor illustrator hates these. They are too soft. She just does not like them at all. So in the end, it really kind of boils down to what you like and what makes you happy and what helps you make the art you want to make. Joseph said, Joseph said, I spent $8 more. Would you just say the prices, or would you type the prices? I don't actually remember the prices because I'd been watching them for a while, but that doesn't mean I got, this is the Opera Rose. That is a very, the camera's not gonna, this is like, all of these neons are like bam in your face. And while I love neons for paintings that, well, okay, so neons are made with dye-based paints. They tend to be very light fugitive because they're dye-based, and dye-based colors just fade very quickly. But they are beautiful and they're very brilliant, so they are good for reproduction to an extent if you can capture that color. That's the tricky part. It's really hard to accurately capture what these colors are doing. So I like neons when I'm doing like a commission and the person commissioning it knows they're getting something that might be not light fast. So basically, like, it's great for like fan art commissions, D&D character commissions, something that you're going to love for 5 years and then be ready to move on, possibly, from that piece. And Joseph says, I did log into my XSplit, though. I did. I really did. I'm having all kinds of weird, dumb ID10T errors on my end tonight, but I did. But it started. Ooh. Sorry, that blue violet is so pretty. It's not gonna, the camera is not gonna do it any justice. I'm so sorry. This is, in my opinion, this is like watching people eat food and they're like, oh, it tastes so good. It tastes so good. And it's like, how are you supposed to know? Like, there's no taste of it. I'm not gonna lick the screen. But take my word on it. The Schmincke Brilliant colors are really pretty. And I got these for Naomi. My character Naomi wears like a lot of bright colors. And I was like, these would be really pretty. This purple would be so pretty on Naomi. So I'm happy with those. Oh man, in real life, they're so pretty. Okay, so I spent $21 for the Paul. I spent $21 for this. That is a good price for a big old quill like this, and $29 for the Light Wish. I think the Light Wish is overpriced. I thought this was going to be a bigger brush, and okay, so I will probably not be buying the quality is good. I just don't like the price. I probably won't be buying the Light Wish again. I probably will be buying more Paul Rubens brushes. Compared to other things people are familiar with. Joseph asked me to remind us what the paper is, both Blick watercolor pads, Etchr, or something on the line. Okay, this is the Etchr cellulose pad. For a cellulose pad, it is really pretty good. I am probably going to try doing like an illustration or something on it just to really test it out before I can be like, I like it. But it's pretty good. This is the Blick cotton rag watercolor paper. I think the Blick is a little bit better than the Etchr paper. It just, we see some of those color splits and granulation a little bit better. The water soaks in a little bit quicker. But some of the colors are actually more vibrant on the cellulose paper than they are on the watercolor paper. And that may boil down to what kind of sizing they're using or what kind of optical brighteners they're using when they're making the paper. So compare it to things other people are familiar with. You know, I won several awards for poetry in high school, and I got nothing. I got nothing. Not because it's incomparable, but because I got nothing. I got nothing. I'm sorry. Okay, so the purple is almost like sunset purple, where we start getting into those darker tones. And the opera red. Okay, so these three sunset colors. This one, this is the opera red violet, right? Yes, brilliant red violet. It's okay. It's kind of like a hot rose red, but in my opinion, if you have the opera rose, you don't need this one. But this blue violet is very pretty, especially on the cellulose paper, which is kind of surprising. I'm getting some speckles on the cotton rag, but that probably just means it could use a couple of layers. So I'm going to switch over now to my more random tubes. I think I'm going to swatch them by brand, just as like a mental organization. So I'm going to start by dropping things. I'm going to start with the PWC, dropping more of things. That's a theme for tonight. And Holly said, for a budget-minded artist like me, which budget-friendly watercolor would you say can be layered with pencils and wax crayons? That is a really good question. Are you looking for kind of a flat color, or are you looking for like more nuance and granulation? All right, what am I starting with? Cadmium green pale. Now, does PWC does list the pigments on the back, so check plus there. It says don't put it in direct sunlight. Don't put it in your mouth, so don't put it in your mouth. It also has the series name, the light fast info, and the opacity info. And I'm just giving an overview of the tubes in case you're not familiar with this brand. I really like this brand. PWC is Shinhan's professional watercolor line, so it's a nice watercolor line. It's just not very well known in the US, which is a shame. I would say it's pretty comparable to Holbein. And of course, I'm biased because David's has them for like $5 a tube. $5 a tube. So these are when I'm teaching classes and I need to make like palettes for the students, kids or adults really. This is the brand I go to because it's affordable, but it's a high quality paint. We should play Will It Explode? And Cindy says, I wonder how this compares to the Paul Rubens ones. You know, that is a good question. I'm going to have to think about that. So, kind of on that note, I have the Shinhan Korean colors, which is like a traditional color palette. And that tends to be a color palette that I'm very into, with celadon greens and like dusky pinks and just really pretty, my kind of muted color palette. And sorry, Paul Rubens has a traditional Chinese palette that I also have, and I have not reviewed either for you guys, but I'm very excited about both of them. And after I do the individual reviews, that might be a good one to go head to head. I'm an art enabler. Terra Vert, yellow shade. Yeah, I'm really happy with them. You get a good amount of paint for a fair price, and they handle pretty well. I think my only kind of qualm about them, and it's not really a fair qualm, is they're very finely granulated, so you don't get a lot. I'm sorry, they're finely milled, so you don't really get a lot of granulation with them. But the Holbein does the same thing. Turner does the same thing. Ooh, Terra Vert doesn't have much to it. Maybe it'll granulate. But not a whole lot of color there. And Tully said, actually both, although mostly flat color because I want to be able to make collage papers with the watercolor and color pencils doing drawing patterns. Okay, I think I have an idea of what you're talking about. I think you would probably like the Mei-Liang Pigments paints, but don't pay more than $25 for the palette. I've seen them on Amazon for like, gosh, there was a time when I saw them on there for like 16 bucks. And if I hadn't already owned one set of it, I would have been all over that. But, so if you have like Honey, you can use that to help track the prices. If you are limited to what you buy in person, that does kind of limit things because nicer art supply stores do tend to charge more for like even like the Mei-Liang. Like at David's I paid $45 for it, and I know that's overpriced, but I love David's and I wanted to support them. So it depends. Where would you probably be getting them from? I might be able to make brand recommendations, because sometimes some stores have like a good store brand. Sometimes their store brand's terrible, like Michael's Artist Loft is terrible. Okay, that was cobalt green, and that is really pretty. A bunch of these are going to go in the Naomi palette for painting her clothes. I use it for other things too, but next is pale blue, or blue pale, sorry, not pale blue. Also, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me on a Friday night. I know people have things to do, and I appreciate it. Clean that up. Ooh, all right, so this is just kind of like, it's almost like a phthalo blue. It's a little bit lighter than a phthalo blue, and it's a little bit cooler than most cerulean blues. It's a really pretty color. Other than for clothing, I don't yet know how I would use it, But that's not, oh, the ocean. It's like an ocean blue. Duh, Becca. I don't have a good art store. I mostly have Walmart and Staples in New Jersey. Are you willing to order online? And Joseph said, people at David's can also help advise you. You might be able to get that straight from the manufacturer, but I doubt you could at large retailers. Do you mean the advice, or do you mean help? Or do you mean the colors? Sorry. And Cindy said, unfortunately, Asian watercolor brands are notorious for not granulating and lack of flow. But if you're a person that likes control and finely milled and pigmented, this is your watercolors. Yep. Very similar to gouache in that aspect. So you can get like these really nice flat areas of color. My only problem with that really is sometimes it starts to feel kind of synthetic with my art. And Anna Donya, hey, how are you? I work till midnight. You make great company while I'm reviewing policy articles. Well, I am so glad I can hang out with you and make that a little bit easier. Yeah, you were correct. Joseph was saying that it can be difficult at larger retailers to get good advice. And I'll second that. Sometimes you catch somebody at Michael's who like really knows their watercolors, but I think that's more on them as a, like more of a good thing on them as a person than Michael's going out of their way to facilitate their employees knowing that. So that was brilliant pink, and it's kind of like a ballet pink, a very light pink. So next is Carmine, which used to, I think, traditionally be made from the cochineal beetles. I wonder if these are, I have to look into that. Ooh, okay, yeah, this one has a lot of, their binder is very clear too. Like, I don't know if you guys can see it on the plate, but I've gotten so used to my binder. This is probably my fault for letting them sit around, so it's just dripping binder right now. It really separated. And that's probably because I've had these sitting for a while until I did a swatch stream with you guys. Whereas with David's, they've had the same two dudes who work there, plus the owners, forever. And so I feel like they probably get a chance to actually get to know the materials that they're carrying. And Carmine is a rich, cooler, almost like a pink sort of red. It doesn't look like it necessarily has a lot of granulation to it. I believe traditionally the red derived from cochineal beetles ended up being like a dye. So this would kind of fit with that, where you get like that even color coverage. Do the tubes say to knead them? Okay, that is not necessarily bad advice, especially with a tube you've had that's been open for a while and isn't like totally full. You can definitely knead them or run them under hot water to kind of loosen them up. But these are new tubes, and I am a little afraid that they might go explodey on me. So that's why I'm not kneading them. That's good advice though, with like, with like half-used tubes. Ah! Always with the exploding. Oh, it gets all over my hands. I also have to be careful about it because I have pets who like to groom me, and watercolors are toxic, so I don't want them to, like, you know, eat cadmium. Even though I do wash my hands after messing with art supplies before I engage with my pets, it still is kind of like, ooh, I don't know about that. So last one of PWC is Shadow Green. And I know I'm putting some pretty hefty swatches onto that plate. Some of these, it's all I can do to keep them in the tube. Ooh. Sorry, I'm such a dork. It's a really pretty dark green color that isn't overly blue. That is it makes me think of like evergreen trees. So it's very much in like my wheelhouse. Tali said, did I see your comment? Let me go look. All I saw was that you don't have a good art store, and then I asked you if you're able to order online. I did see a comment. And that about fills up this page of the Etchr. I'll probably try to squeak some in there. Oh, yes, open to buying online, sorry. Getting watercolors off a cat is not fun either. You try to wash them off and the water makes them stronger, and then the cat just gets madder. Why are you doing this to me? Okay, so next, it's kind of like a mishmash. So I think I'm going to do some of the Daniel Smith ones that I've been hoarding. So next we have Rare Earth Green. And the Daniel Smith tubes, these are 15 milliliter tubes. I don't know why it's not focusing correctly. It does list the pigments. It says pigment Rare Green Earth, Terra Vert Rare, and I believe this was also a Terra Vert. The vehicle is gum Arabic solution. And that's about it for info on this. I'm not seeing, oh yes, yeah, okay, all right. Series 2, light fastness 1. Okay, so something that confuses me is every company does it differently. Some companies treat, in fact, I think Kristen W. somebody did a really good blog post on light fastness and what it means and what it doesn't mean, and how confusing companies' light fast scales can be and how kind of arbitrary they are. And I'll try to dig it out for you guys because it's a really, really, really good article. But every company kind of has their own way of doing it and then their own way of ranking it. So it can be kind of confusing. Like this might mean super light fastness of 1, like 1, the best. Or it could be the worst light fastness, a super low ranking. Oh, okay, good. You're open to buying things online. I would recommend the Meliang Pigments watercolors. You can get them on Amazon. Meliang Pigments is the student grade. Okay, there's a lot of binder there. The student grade version of Paul Rubens, so they're more affordable. But if you set that and Paul Rubens watercolors on Honey to see when they go down in price, the Paul Rubens may end up going down to a price that you're happy with paying. That would be my recommendation. With cheap watercolors, cheap watercolors are kind of hard because the way they get them to be cheap is often by like watering them down in a way with extenders. So like they're making them cheaper for them to make so that they're cheaper for you to buy, so they don't last very long, so then you have to replace them. Or they use dyes and maybe the color strength isn't what it's supposed to be, so it takes more paint to mix the same color. If you've watched Natasha Newton's videos, I have not. I'll check her out. But she does a lot of light fast tests on questionable Daniel Smith water. Yeah, Daniel Smith has gotten some heat before. I think Eve Bolt has talked about some of the stuff that has come to light in the watercolor community regarding Daniel Smith watercolors and some of the promises they make with their, the Primatech line. Like their amethyst is dyed with purple to get it really purple instead of just being like a shiny quartz color. So yeah, I'll check them out. Sounds like we have like opposite vibes. I'm like trash goblin over here. I say that with love. Next is Diopside Genuine. This one is not marked as a Primatech color. It says Genuine Diopside, and that's it. I don't know if that's it, but that's what it says. Oh, the gum Arabic, and that is very brown. That's like Winsor and Newton. So you see this little brown pat over there? It's hard to see because my camera won't focus. It's basically this color of brown. Not what you want in your watercolors as a binder. Come on, Daniel Smith. Fellow trash goblin. Man, TikTok is a lot, okay? Like, I don't care that everybody is prettier than me on TikTok. That's fine. That's whatever. They obviously spend a lot of time to do that, and I appreciate that, and I stand their choice to do that. However, everyone's studios look so much better than mine and are so much cleaner, and that I take offense to. That is an unrealistic beauty standard. Mostly I just envy them. Like, how are you able... Ooh, we got another explodey one. How are you able to, like, work and get work done without making a mess? Do you clean it every night? Do you really do that? Is that a thing people do? Is that how we adult? Okay, that next color is cerulean blue chromium. So that means I need to keep it away from cats and rats. Ooh, but it's pretty. It's a little warmer than our blue pale. It's like the color of the sky over the ocean. Everyone just showing their trash in the corner that they're not filming in. We have talked about the pretty corner before. But see, okay, that was how I was in Nashville, where I had like the pretty corner and then everything else was a disaster. Now it's just 360 disaster. Joseph said, now that we have a 3D rendering of your studio, we can just apply it as a green screen. Maybe. I might agree to that. So next I'm gonna do my Qor. I really like Qor as a brand. Let me show you why. It's very handy for me. Okay, so this is gum Arabic. This one has yellowed a bit, but as we saw with the Daniel Smith, that can happen in the tube too. This is Qor's Aquazol, and I've actually had this bottle for several years. I love pulling these out to demonstrate, and it gets a lot of light from my studio. And it has yellowed a bit, but it hasn't yellowed nearly as much. And I think this is actually younger than this bottle here. It hasn't yellowed nearly as much over the years. So when it comes to blues, Qor just is able to deliver these really beautiful, clean kind of blues because it doesn't have that yellowing gum Arabic to kind of counteract it. So next is cerulean blue chromium. So woo, 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 woo. Okay, so we did the Daniel Smith. Now we've got the Qor. Tully said, all right then, but besides Mei Liang, in the event it's sold out, what other palette would I recommend? Oh, okay, hang on. Drippy, drippy, drippy. That requires some thought, because I really like some of the look how, that's all separation. There we go. That's a good question. I have gotten very comfortable with just recommending the Mei Liang because they tend to be available. Theoretically, if Mei Liang isn't, Aowen, A-O-W-E-N, might be available around that price point. That is also by Shanghai Aowen, so also by the Paul Rubens parent company. Pretty much identical to the Mei Liang pigments, except it comes in a half pan instead of like in a weird chiclet form. But that is not actually a good faith answer to your question, because I'm just picking another watercolor by the same brand. I really like Superior Watercolors for like their student grade stuff. That folding palette that I reviewed, for some reason I love that thing. And you can get their student grade stuff white labeled on Amazon under the Artify, A-R-T-I-F-Y label. But the dangerous thing with the white labeling stuff is that if they switch to a different manufacturer, because that manufacturer is cheaper, they're not going to necessarily notify you that they switched to a different manufacturer. So me recommending the Artify paints might be a bad recommendation if they switch their manufacturer. And Milani says, I'll post a pic in Discord of my office the day I decided I was done with my... Oh, wait, I posted... Oh, you will post. Okay, sorry. Eyesight is going to garbage. Decided I was done with my doom drawer. Okay, what I want to know though is, have you hit, and this isn't me like challenging you, this is a desperate woman asking for advice from a fellow ADHD. What solution did you move to? We bought map cabinets, and I kind of love them, but it's getting the stuff into it that I'm going to struggle with. But the beautiful thing about the map cabinets is they are huge and shallow, which means no more doom drawers because everything has to be a flat lay. But that can't work for everything because those map cabinets are ginormous. Okay, next is cobalt blue. And Joseph said, why do they put them in clear? Yeah, I don't know. So you can see them turn yellow. He was talking about the binders. I don't know. I love them for demonstration purposes because it's a really good... So for years I thought I hated the color ultramarine blue. Not because I don't love warm blues, but because every brand I got before I tried Qor for that color, it was this dingy, kind of dirty blue that just didn't make my heart sing. And it wasn't until... Oh, that cobalt blue is pretty. That is like... the color True Blue. Actually, I think the color True Blue, the Crayola color True Blue is like a Yinmin blue. This is a little, I find Yinmin blue is a little bit of a flat blue. This is just a little bit warm. Oh, it's pretty, but it doesn't granulate as much as ultramarine blue. White wine makers are finally moving to opaquer bottles. If they can do it, art supply companies can. They can. I know that Winsor and Newton basically uses the same bottle for like most of their mixes, so that's probably why they don't. And the Qor one is in a nice glass bottle with a nice dropper. I'm just the bad faith actor who has it out on top of her desk in full light exposure at all times. Every drawer is labeled now. I have a lot of drawers, and then I have like a million containers. Yeah, I feel that. All those like cutlery dividers are definitely like good for brushes, stuff like that. Took you about two weeks. Rip. I admire that. I think I would get discouraged bored about 2 hours, so you're a hero. Tali said, be careful. Thank you for answering my question. No problem. And I do actually have a lot of student grade watercolor reviews up in the student grade showdown. Hopefully those could do a really good job of demonstrating. Sorry, I was trying to open a tube of watercolor. Those can do a really good job of demonstrating the properties of the watercolors so that you can find one that you're happiest with. Sorry, brain just went. This is Rose d'Or, which is kind of, doesn't smell nice like rose madder. It's kind of one of the more expensive Winsor and Newton colors. So I will only do a little bit of it until we know if we like it. And Joseph said, we just wrapped up putting everything together. So all the markers are together, all the rays. Hey, that was you. Joseph did that, by the way. And it took him a while. And he is a saint and a superhero. I mean, he spent so many days in the craft room going through my boxes, quietly judging me, but not making me listen to him judge me. Not making me listen to him judge me and my dubious life choices. So, like, yeah, I should... This looks like it kind of fell apart. I should just be able to go through those boxes and put them into the map cabinets. That's kind of a pretty color. Let's see how it looks if we add some water to it. That's kind of pretty. Kind of makes like a very light skin tone. I mean, not that that's like the judge of everything, but I'm saying if you're lazy, and that's usually me with burnt sienna, is like, add a bunch of water. I got a skin tone. Kind of like that. It's got kind of like a nice sort of flesh color that might work to add like a rosiness to some skin. The more I look at it, the more I'm like, yeah, I actually like that as a blush color. I may move away. For Kara, alizarin crimson still works really well for Naomi, but for Kara, this would actually work better with her skin tone. Yes, please do send pics. Yeah, the labeling helps. Done stuff is help from my husband and a couple friends because I have numerous meltdowns cleaning. That is also me. And then finally we have HWC Marine Blue, which I think this was me rebuying a color that I'd used up in the past. Look how clear their binder is. I wonder what their binder is. Look at that. Look at that. It's like crystal clear with just a little bit of the blue in it. Not that you always, come on, that's okay. All right, we've all bragged about you now. You can stop anytime, any minute. Okay, there we go. Got everything out of boxes into shallow bins, but the bins are temporary. They are temporary because they are stacked, and that is literally temporarily going to stay stacked, because just me pulling one box out of the middle, which I would do, is going to send them all to the ground. Ooh, that is a very pretty color, probably very dye-based. Maybe not. What does the tube say? PB16, fully transparent, 3 asterisks, 3 cat buttholes of light fastness, and it is Series C. Seriously expensive. And Tali said, I've been watching my videos on student watercolors. They have been insightful. I did ask this question on your PWC Watercolors, but what did you think of the Prang watercolors? Oh, that was a really long time ago. I feel like the Prang watercolors were okay, but that I liked the Yarka children's watercolors better than the Prang watercolors. Let me grab a link for the Yarka children's watercolors, because Yarka makes a lot of watercolors, and I want to make sure that I send you the ones I'm talking about. So regarding the Yarka, this is it going to let me send? Of course it's not going to let me send. Wow, I reviewed these in 2017. It feels like literally a million years ago. Like 10 years ago. Okay, these are the Yarka ones that I've reviewed. However, they do have a larger set that I didn't review, so I can't vouch for it, but I don't see why it would be significantly worse. I did review a different Jack Richardson / Yarka set that I really didn't like, but it's not either of these. Yeah, right? I need to get all on the cat buttholes of life. Oh, my cup of water is so far away. Okay, so I found out Shinhan has a line of designer gouache. Somehow I feel like I haven't seen it in person. I haven't seen it in the wild, but I think I've maybe seen it on Amazon. The ones if I were going to take a look at gouache, it would be this brand, the Sui. I talked about Prang being good for skin. Oh, I did. Thank you. It's been a while. Yeah, I think I did a skin tone demo with Prang to show that, like, I would just avoid, in my opinion, the Crayola watercolors. I don't love those at all. The educational ones are better, but like the washable ones are the devil. Okay, so without further testing yet, haven't done it yet, the Etchr cellulose block is pretty decent. If I didn't know it was cellulose, I would think it was a cotton rag. The only exception is when I put a bunch of water on there, it sat for a while. But like if I didn't know to look for that, it wouldn't have really registered with me. So I consider that a really good thing. I consider that to be a more usable paper. I'm definitely going to try this, like give this a test and see, and that way I can let you guys know, like, because this is just swatching, like that doesn't tell you what you need to know, but if I do an illustration on it, I can at least talk about the working properties of it. I would say if you're considering the Supervision Very Peri set, the day color and the night color are very disappointing. They don't have any, in my opinion, they don't have anything really to bring to the table. But the periwinkle color is very pretty. So if somebody's selling it open stock, or if you want a good dupe, y'all said that Holbein has a good dupe. I'm pretty sure PWC also has a good dupe. It's a pretty color. It probably has a lot of opacity and optical brighteners in it to make it this like pastel purple, so it probably doesn't take mixing with other colors super well, and it probably doesn't take a lot of layering on top of it super well, but there are ways to work with that and make it work for you. That's why I have the Naomi colors in their own palette, is a reminder to me to mix them a little bit differently than how I normally mix colors. So what else? I mean, I guess that's about it. The PWC Terravert is not particularly exciting. Not really recommended. That's this one here. It didn't really have a lot to bring to the table. And the Daniel Smith Rare Green Earth was also not very exciting. The Shadow Green is really pretty though, and I really like that color. It's this one on here. And that would be really good for like foliage, especially maybe more wintry themed foliage. And then the Qor Cobalt Blue is really pretty. And what I think is interesting is that this is the Cerulean Blue Chromium from Daniel Smith. And you guys can't see it, unfortunately, but it is yellower, like a good amount yellower than the Qor Cerulean Blue Chromium, which is more of like a nice sky kind of color. So depending on what you're looking for, the Qor one would probably be the way to go. And Holly said, would praying watercolors be chalky and hard to layer with colored pencils? So with the cheaper, like student, like kiddo watercolors, like the praying and the Yarka, they use a different kind of binder. I think they use like dextrin because it's easier to wash it out of clothes. So that might form kind of like a skin on the paper that might make it hard to get your color pencils to actually mark on it. If you've already got them, I would recommend just trying it and seeing before you commit to something like big and involved. And Cindy said the streams are always dangerous for the wall. I'm sorry. If it helps, I don't have any kind of working partnership with anybody. Etchr did send me this block to take a look at, but otherwise I don't have any kind of affiliations with anybody. I just have like a severe, or I don't buy makeup anymore. My addictions are art supplies, my pets, and coffee. So I don't get to have vices anymore. Even with all the controversy, I still loved, yes, Primatex. It's just that they do stuff I can't find in other watercolor brands, and I get that. I really wish, like, if you love Primatex, there's nothing wrong with you loving Primatex, and I hope nobody is giving you like a hard time for that. My complaint is I wish they would be honest, and it's the same complaint that I have with the Supervision super granulating watercolors. I just wish they would have been honest that they're including dyes, because there are going to be artists like me and you who want specific properties, and those paints are the only ones that are going to do that. And at least it lets us know, oh hey, these might fade if I display them in a like a sunlit room. Anna said, I still love my Primatex too. They're pretty and fun to work with. I never cared about the mineral element. I'm somewhere in between. I think the mineral element of it is cool because I like minerals, and I think minerals are cool. But that wouldn't... I would have not bought the amethyst just because like they added a bunch of dye to it, and like amethyst wouldn't, ground up like that, just wouldn't give you that kind of a dark purple. But I actually think it's a really pretty color. So yeah, I'm somewhere in between with that. Okay, y'all, it is 9:30. I am kind of spent, and I still got a page that I want to pencil, and I got do something about the light situation in this room so that I don't look like a ghost and I'm not blinding y'all. So hopefully, barring emergencies, I will paint one of these. Let me know which of these illustrations you want to see me paint for next week, and we will try the Michaels kit next week, and that we'll just go in with the Michaels kit. So you can either let me know in the paint box or you can let me know in the chat. Paint making kits or print making kits? Yeah, you can always, it's very easy to like guilt. I hate this. I shouldn't admit this, but it's very easy to guilt me into doing things. Oh, I grew up Catholic and an eldest daughter, so it's like there's a lot of guilt. There's a strong guilt complex. Yes, please, if you have read Qor either as a webcomic or as a physical book and you have the time, I would really appreciate it if you'd leave a review. Reviews on Amazon unlock other features that Amazon has. Like, you have to hit like 10 reviews before you can do certain promotional things. So if you like the book, or even if you don't like the book, if you leave a my brain is dying. I'm sorry. If you'd leave a review, it'd be really helpful. Believe it or not, when I do reviews now, I have to do like half the talking with my eyes shut because the ADHD has just gotten so strong. So strong. Okay, we've got a vote for the third illustration. That's the one with the roses. So that's one for the roses. All right, y'all. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. I hope you guys have a happy weekend. Do something you love, something relaxing, something that fills your heart with joy. And it is the light. It is no joke. It's the light. I'm wearing light blocking glasses. The light is it makes the ADHD fritz really, really, really bad. And that's something you and I are going to have to just work on. I love that I don't get harsh cast shadows on my art so that people can see what I'm doing, but I'm going nuts with all the light. So anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I will see you guys next Friday. We'll do the Michaels kit. So if you want to go, if this is absolutely not me pushing you to spend money at Michaels, please don't take it that way. But if you think it looks goofy and fun and you want to do one while, like, you know, like a thing, like, you know, if you want to do it too, I got it at Michaels. They always have them on the end caps. It's like they're always liquidating them. But absolutely no pressure at all. So I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you guys next Friday. Bye. Thank you guys for coming. Yeah, get rid of the lights in front of me. Yeah, probably. Bye, y'all. Night. Thank you guys for a great time. I missed hanging out with you guys so much.